People used to just throw trash everywhere. Hello, welcome to I Read This Book with Chris. This is Chris. This is the book. Deadly Litter by James White. While discussing Deadly Litter, I've got myself a blueberry cream soda. Deadly Litter. So I picked up James White because I've previously read books in his hospital series. Ambulance Ship, I believe, is the one I read. There's Hospital Station, Lifeboat, Major Operation, Star Surgeon. I was expecting something sort of like that, but with space litter. And that's not what this is at all. In his Hospital Station, I believe that's what they call the series, the Hospital Station series. It's humans with a bunch of other different aliens. It's space opera, huge, galaxy-wide. So many things, it's impossible to understand it all, right? There's too many different things. It's like me as a English white guy going to India. Just the amount of languages that they speak there. Like, it would take me a lifetime to even begin to understand it, right? It's like that many cultures just thrown together. This is very different. These are 4 different short stories where it's humans inside the solar system. They're all different in different worlds, have different logics to how things work. This book was originally published in 1964. This is the 1981 edition. There are 4 short stories, of which I found 3 pretty good. There's Grape Liner, a story about transporting humans, I believe it's to Mars, somewhere else within the solar system. And it seems as if the best bet is not to use metal on the ships, use the least amount of metal possible. So they use metal for the nuclear reactor, which powers it, and as the engine that moves everything. And everything else is made out of plastic. Basically, it's just the story of how the ship works. So there is the engine in the center, and then going out in concentric strings they call them like rings of pearls, where everyone has their own little space cubby that are connected by tethers to other people in the space tubby to go around in a circle, and it continues out into a Christmas tree, a cone shape. And so each one, those are the people's rooms which they're staying in, and they have the ability to go from one room to another and put on a spacesuit. Or there's a center room where people can come and do things. That's where all of the porters and stuff go. And you basically just have guys just floating through space in that, which is a very interesting, weird idea of how space travel might be. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a fun idea. The next story that's somewhat interesting is Lights Outside the Windows, where apparently space is so dangerous and deadly. Staring out into space makes men go crazy. Women are fine. Men go crazy. And we're inside of a spaceship by one of the smaller companies that works because you have a woman who's the captain, and then her crew is all men, and they are all hypnotized to believe they are children pretending to be in a spaceship inside space. They think they are training to be in space, but they're actually grown men brought down to be 7 or 6 or 8 or something. I forget. They say how old they're trying to get them mentally, and sabotage happens from one of the other companies trying to figure out how exactly they do things, and chaos happens, and so she needs to take her crew, while acting as their mother, work them through this problem. It's very interesting, the whole difference between the roles of the sexes in this story. The 4th book, the 4th story in Deadly Litter is Deadly Litter. It's a story about litter in space, basically. Apparently, space travel has become so common. The most dangerous thing for ships traveling through space are not meteorites or micrometeorites, but litter caused by previous human trips. So this was 1964 that this was published. So a little early for the whole super green, everyone needs to recycle. So pretty early for his time, from my understanding, because I know the 70s were like that, and by the 90s, everyone's like recycling, recycling, recycling. That was a huge thing in one of my space. So you want to be a wizard books. Everyone needs to be super green in one of those. But my question though is whether or not the math makes any sense. So the story is about the collision was happening. Things weren't going well. They were trying to lose mass in order to slow down the ship, and so they were throwing litter out. And so they threw stuff out, and then they slowed down, and they threw stuff out, and they slowed down, and they threw stuff out, and they slowed down. And over the period of 11 years, the difference between the speeds of the different things that they jettisoned would actually force these things further apart, and they would not be together. Like if you have a ship, and the ship's in orbit, or is on a path around the sun, right? If the ship explodes, that stuff is all at the same relativistic speed. It's going to stay together. But if you, over the period of hours, throw things out and lose speed, and then throw things out and lose speed, and throw things out and lose speed, there's no the gravitational force to pull those things together isn't going to be there. And since they have such drastic speeds, the difference in speed, that may not make much of a difference, but after 11 years, going even 2 miles an hour difference is going to spread these things out. So I don't just think this guy has a great concept of math, which is not the purpose of the story. Litter investigator tracking down one survivor of an 11-year-old space collision, where he was the only survivor. Apparently, this space collision was caused by litter, and they're trying to lose mass. The collision was happening. Things weren't going well. They were trying to lose mass in order to slow down the ship, and so they were throwing litter out. And so they threw stuff out, and then they slowed down, and they threw stuff out, and they slowed down, and they threw stuff out, and they slowed down. And over the period of 11 years, the difference between the speeds of the different things that they jettisoned would actually force these things further apart, and they would not be together. Like if you have a ship, and the ship's in orbit, or is on a path around the sun, right? If the ship explodes, that stuff is all at the same relativistic speed. It's going to stay together. But if you, over the period of hours, throw things out and lose speed, and then throw things out and lose speed, and throw things out and lose speed, there's no the gravitational force to pull those things together isn't going to be there. And since they have such drastic speeds, the difference in speed, that may not make much of a difference, but after 11 years, going even 2 miles an hour difference is going to spread these things out. So I don't just think this guy has a great concept of math, which is not the purpose of the story. I think people don't understand how big space is, how exponentials work. I understand it's a story not about litter in space, even though it seems to be. It's a story about litter on Earth, because when people used to just throw trash everywhere, especially when we came to America, the early years of America, because everything was so big and vast. Yeah, if it was on your farm, and it was your farm, and you was your daddy's farm, you probably would have a spot where you'd throw everything. You'd dig a hole and throw it all there. But like you can see, even in like the 40s, people were throwing beer cans out the windows, and people would have picnics and just leave their trash there. Like there was a whole thing where it doesn't matter. There's so much clean space, and then eventually people realized, no, we are growing. We are a lot of people, and this is starting to become an issue. But I don't know that story makes sense in space, or even if the human population explodes and becomes big, 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 big. In space is so much bigger than we can imagine. This is the reason I don't like science fiction that's too sciencey, it's too mathy, is when you're trying to make it real, and you don't have the knowledge, either because the knowledge is such a young state in this field where such things will change, and you're trying to be realistic, but in a few years' time everything changes, or you just don't understand how math and probability works, or anyone who has, like, I'm not a super mathy guy, but like I know enough to be like, that's not how that doesn't make sense. So James White, if you like his hospital series, and you like the big galactic, all these different things, I don't know that I would read it. But it is a fun book. Great blinder. I enjoyed quite a bit. It's very crazy idea of how space travel might be. And all of these are stories. What's the other one? Lights Outside the Window, about the space madness and about men and women acting differently. That's also quite a fun story. It's very experimental. These are what science fiction stories should be. You have an idea, you play it out, and maybe it's not good, maybe it makes a story and the story's fun, maybe the story, not a whole lot happens, you're just fleshing out an idea. And then the good stories you can then go and turn into something else, if they turn out to be. But I originally got into science fiction through short stories, because in a short story, especially a science fiction short story, you can play with ideas in ways I don't think you can anywhere else. What if the world was like this? Okay. Well, thanks for watching. Have a good one.